If I'm right, this is the red whitewash no one wants to cancel. Everyone remembers Hitler. The mustache, the speeches, the ovens. Condemned, canceled, demonized. And rightly so. But Stalin? He killed more people. And somehow made it onto academic journals, t-shirts, and activist posters. And Che? The guy personally oversaw executions at gunpoint. Now he's a symbol of rebellion for privileged kids sipping Starbucks. This is the story of how mass murder became marketable, as long as it was red. Before Stalin, before Che, before Castro, there was Vladimir Lenin, the father of the blood-soaked revolution. He promised peace, land, and bread. He delivered famine, censorship, and a police state. He established the Cheka, the original Soviet secret police, tasked with executing class enemies without trial. The result? Over 100,000 people dead during the Red Terror, in just a few years. Lenin said, "We must use any ruse, cunning, unlawful method, evasion, and concealment to keep power." Gulags? They were his idea. Mass arrests? Also his idea. Stalin was not a distortion of Lenin. Stalin was his most faithful student. If Lenin lit the match, Stalin built the furnace. He ruled the USSR for nearly 30 years and left a body count in the tens of millions. Forced famines, mass deportations, summary executions, and the largest network of forced labor camps in modern history, the Gulag. During the Holodomor, Stalin's engineered famine in Ukraine, millions died while the regime seized grain from starving families. Some even resorted to cannibalism. You'd think that would get a little more attention than a bad tweet. Stalin purged his own government, sent poets and professors to Siberia, and ran show trials with pre-written verdicts. He erased people from photos. He erased them from life. And yet, you'll still find students today quoting him as if he was some misunderstood genius. Imagine if someone wore a Hitler hoodie to class. Now imagine a Stalin one and watch the professor nod. This isn't whataboutism. This is historical amnesia. If we cancel statues for slavery, why do we romanticize a man who turned entire nations into prisons? Che Guevara, the rebel on your roommate's t-shirt. The man behind the myth was no peace-loving idealist. He built firing squads, jailed dissenters, hunted homosexuals. He even said, "Judicial proof is unnecessary. These procedures are an archaic bourgeois detail. This is a revolution, and a revolutionary must become a cold-killing machine." Due process slowed him down, so he skipped it. In Cuba, Che oversaw executions at La Cabana prison, sometimes hundreds in a single week. Many without trial. Just a nod and a bullet. He wasn't building a utopia. He was building fear. And yet, his face became a global brand. T-shirts, posters, coffee mugs. From firing squad to fashion line. They called Fidel Castro brave. Brave for standing up to America. Brave for defying imperialism. But bravery isn't starving your own island. It's not jailing poets, silencing voices, or sinking rafts full of families. He promised freedom, delivered fear. Promised equality, delivered exile. Promised revolution, delivered ruin. For 60 years, Cubans risked the ocean just to escape his paradise. If Castro's Cuba was so great, why do people build rafts to leave it, not to enter? He wore fatigues, he gave speeches, he made sure his beard looked just right. But behind the costume was just another dictator. His brother Raúl carried on the legacy, because nothing says freedom like keeping the tyranny in the family. Question: is fascist just a word for bad guy? Because ideologically, fascism and communism are twins. Cult of personality, state control of economy, suppression of dissent, mass surveillance, glorification of violence. Mussolini was a former Marxist. Hitler hated capitalism and pushed welfare programs. Were they right-wing? Or is that just a label we use for whoever we want to hate today? It's convenient, isn't it, to dump every monster in the same basket, as long as it's not your side of history. We'll do an entire episode on this. You won't want to miss it. If I'm right, the left just outsourced its sins. If I'm wrong, explain why Marxist dictators keep wearing brown boots. Ask anyone on the street how many Jews Hitler killed. They'll answer fast. 6 million. And they should. But ask how many people Stalin killed. Most won't know. Or worse, they'll say, yeah, but he was fighting the Nazis. Let me help. Stalin's regime killed over 20 million people. Starved, shot, deported, worked to death, sometimes all of the above. Between 1932 and 1933, he orchestrated a famine in Ukraine, known as the Holodomor, a man-made atrocity that starved nearly 6 million people to death, many of them children. It wasn't bad weather. It wasn't mismanagement. It was deliberate. While Ukrainians ate grass, Soviet soldiers guarded grain silos. Farmers were executed for keeping a single potato. This is what happens when the state owns everything, even your hunger. But there's no movie about it. No Schindler's List. No museums in every capital. No global slogan, never again, except if it's communist. Instead, we see Lenin statues still standing. We see students waving red flags, wearing hammers and sickles like a fashion choice. Try walking into class with a swastika and see how that goes. Oh, and that so-called Soviet economic miracle? It wasn't communism that built it. It was American money. Through the Lend-Lease program, the U.S. funneled billions into the USSR during World War II. Tanks, trucks, fuel, food, even entire factories. And after the war, Stalin looted half of Eastern Europe. That helps too. Imagine the regret of the American government. Talk about shooting your own foot to kill someone else's enemy. So no, the system didn't work. It was propped up by Western capital and war spoils. And when those ran out, so did the miracle. Stalin killed poets, priests, peasants, professors, but at least he got the trains running, right? The silence around his crimes isn't ignorance. It's amnesia by design, a curated forgetting, a red whitewash. And if Stalin was a butcher, Mao Zedong was a factory of death. Chairman Mao starved 45 million people to death in just 4 years. That's the population of Argentina. Gone. His great leap forward was neither great nor forward. It was mass starvation disguised as progress. He banned private farming, forced people into communes, lied about crop yields, and executed anyone who told the truth. He launched the Cultural Revolution, a nationwide purge of teachers, doctors, artists, all in the name of ideological purity. His Red Guards beat the old world to death, and he smiled. Between starvation, execution, torture, and forced labor, Mao's regime killed more than any other leader in history. And guess who cheered him on from Moscow? Yep, good old Stalin. Before his death, Stalin was Mao's mentor and political sponsor. He supplied weapons, advisors, and international cover. And when it came time to spread the revolution westward, he funded Fidel Castro's rise in Cuba. He helped install Soviet missiles on the island, pointed straight at the United States. That standoff triggered the embargo, and the embargo triggered the misery. But let's not forget the punchline. None of this, not Mao's rise, not Cuba's communism, not the missiles, would have been possible without one little detail. It was American money from the Lend-Lease program that bankrolled the USSR in the first place. Imagine footing the bill for your own nuclear nightmare. Call it karma. Call it stupidity. Either way, the red came with a receipt. But sure, keep wearing that red star. It's just fashion, right? Before the gulags, before the firing squads, before the famine and fear, there were two men writing in a library, dreaming up a world with no rich, no poor, and no choice. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels never built a prison, but they drew the blueprints. They promised equality through revolution, but their equality came with a cost. Individuality erased. Property seized. Freedom redefined as obedience. Their ideas became the scripture of tyrants. Lenin quoted them. Stalin worshipped them. Mao turned their pages into policy. They died before the bloodshed, but their ideology didn't. It became the foundation of regimes that murdered over 100 million people. And here's the real kicker. Marx, the champion of the worker, never worked a day in his life. He despised the bourgeoisie while being one of them. He lived off his wife's money, a well-off physician, while ranting about class struggle from the comfort of her inheritance. It's the oldest game in the book. Do as I say, not as I do. Marx wasn't a revolutionary. He was a theorist with a full stomach, a philosopher of suffering who never had to suffer. One of the fathers of modern self-help, preaching liberation without lifting a finger. And the world paid the price for his immaculate ignorance. History isn't about who you like. It's about what happened. And what happened is that the blood spilled by communism was no less red than the blood spilled by fascism. Yet somehow, we canceled one side and commercialized the other. Murderers became martyrs. Dictators became fashion icons. Revolution became branding. We teach the world to fear Hitler, and we should. But we teach it to forgive Stalin and to cheer for Che. That's not education. That's marketing. If I'm right, the red was whitewashed, rewritten, repackaged, recycled for the next generation of useful idiots. If I'm wrong, don't whine, don't cancel me, don't call names. Bring facts, bring receipts. Challenge this with something better than hashtags and vibes. Maybe, just maybe, start by reading the sources in the description. Because around here, we don't shoot from the hip. We shoot from the archives. I'm done. Your move.